Hey everyone, editing Pheano here. Before the video starts, I just want to say something real quick. I don't really bring this up too often because I haven't really felt like I deserved it in the past. I didn't feel like I brought enough value that it was like really worth bringing this up or anything like that. But I have a Patreon now and a YouTube membership thing. I just like started that the other day. It really helps make videos like this possible. So if you enjoy the video, consider supporting. But regardless, I hope you enjoy the video. Really excited today. Got a fantastic guest with us. We have the Pablo. You want to give us a brief introduction? I'm sure most people know who you are at this point, but real quick.
Well, but I'm really happy to be here too. We have talked a lot, but we haven't done anything together yet, and we have to change that. Yeah. So
Yeah, I've
yeah.
been looking for an
Um.
excuse for a while.
But I'm Pablo Pintor. I'm from Spain. I have had a really good year of playing Flesh and Blood, so maybe you know me from that and the Sunflower Samurais. And that's like the briefest that I can do.
The living legend killer himself.
I have had some really good tournaments. One of them with Chain and one of them with Aldim. So yeah, I happen to be like the last person to actually think that they were good, and win when they were like 900 living legend points.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that sounds good, but they didn't do as much work as other people did. But we'll take it.
All right, so today we're going to be talking about the new hero Vynnset and just kind of going over like initial impressions. We're still not even with the set coming out. Like literally, when this recording is over, I'm going to a pre-release. So like we're very early into understanding how these heroes work. So this is a first impressions. So we're going to be talking about like how we might see these heroes functioning and working, problems and shortcomings we might see with them, and just kind of broad thoughts that we have on the heroes, and then some Q&A at the end from some viewers. You had a comment earlier on the name of Vynnset before we
Yeah,
started recording.
I don't know how it's spelled in English. Like I don't know if it's been said or how it's pronounced. But in Spanish, it's pretty close to a grandma's name. You know, these names from 2 generations ago, and it's Vicenta. So like most of the people call her that in Spain, and it's actually pretty funny. It's a
Hmm,
really good name.
that's cool. First topic I want to talk about: is this actually a chain replacement? Like, is this kind of functioning as what we are hoping to see to fill the void that chain left behind, the literal
We
void?
will never have a chain replacement. We have to accept that at this point. He was extremely broken, and it was not only his cards, like it was his whole mechanic. Like the idea of getting more cards in a game where you always draw four cards is fundamentally OP. You cannot. I don't think they would they will be able to ever work with that idea again. I do think that the LSS developers tried their best to do something that felt like Chain, but Vincent doesn't feel like Chain at all, and she doesn't play like Chain at all. And you said that we didn't have enough time to actually try these new heroes. I need you to know that I really worked hard for this, and I spent 2 whole days playing Vincent.
Sheesh.
Okay, yeah, I did my work. I did my work for you, Pheano. So,
I love you.
so yeah, I have actually changed my views quite a bit when I tried her. This happens a lot, like in every single new set. There's some things that I think, oh, this will be like OP, this will be amazing, and it isn't. Like Prism in this set.
Yeah, well, stay tuned. We'll be talking about that in a future video. I have
and
opinions.
and there's times where I say, yeah, I don't think this will work at all, and I must say I am impressed with what I have achieved with Vincent in just a few days. She has some core problems that I don't know we will be able to solve them. I don't think we will be able to solve them, but she works much better than I thought. Yeah.
So you like the core gameplay loop so far?
If you're a Guardian player, you will enjoy it. That's that's not a room blade gameplay.
That was one thing I was kind of hoping when I saw the art of her and the flavor and the first couple cards we saw. I was wondering if we're gonna see more of a like kind of block a little bit, throw back a number type of play style type of thing. Kind of just a different take than the other rune blades. I'm jumping ahead a few points. We're gonna talk about how she compares to the other rune blades shortly. Do you think it's a good thing that she's not like Chain? Like, do you think that's a failure on the hero, or do you think that's a good thing for her to differentiate herself from that and not kind of try to fill those big shoes?
I actually like that they tried a different approach to the Runeblade class with her. I also like defensive playstyles, so she fits right into my favorite decks, you know. But it's kind of sad that these heroes were supposed to be like a replacement of Prism and Chain, and while New Prism still uses the heralds and cards from old Prism, maybe not as good as she did, but she uses them.
I feel like she uses the
Um,
heralds better, but that's all she's doing.
but she can still run all of the auras and the heralds, so there's still like this callback to old Prism, right? Whereas
Similar
in Vincent,
identity almost.
yeah, of course, and in Vincent, I don't see that. Like she doesn't even use any of Chain's cards. Well, Shadow Puppetry, if you think that's a that's a Chain card, but yeah, she almost doesn't use the same cards as Chain. She doesn't have a similar play pattern as he did, and it's an entirely different beast. You know, that's good, because I don't think you can salvage anything from Chain core mechanics. Like I don't think there's anything you can work that isn't fundamentally broken. Like,
So
we
you're
have to
saying you
think that
don't like 15 card hands? You think that's
oh, I
bad for the
love
game?
them. I love them. Like you can win a pro tour with them, you know. He was an extremely broken hero, and the the most broken thing about Chain was probably the fact that we really didn't know how to play him until much later, because he was so broken when he was released, when he had like Seeds of Agony and he could just like destroy you however he wanted, that we really didn't know how to pitch a stack and how to prepare like this kind of perfect final turn. And once we did that, like it was a deck with no weaknesses. He could lose, of course. Still a card game. You can still lose it any game,
Plus, he
but
inherently has a bit more randomness than other heroes.
not
The shackling, like it,
yeah.
that technically
In
exists.
like the problem was that most of his cards still block 3, and there wasn't like any extremely fast deck at the moment in the meta. I'm still talking about Pro Tour One
Yeah, yeah.
kind of
This
meta,
is the
like
Starvo, Prism,
Starvo,
and Chain meta with a little bit of Viscera existing.
and none of those decks were really like extremely fast. Even Starvo, like he was disrupting, but he didn't dealt as much damage, you know. And also, Chain had like this ridiculous amount of armor. Carrion Husk, Grasp of the Arknight, Arcanite, and okay, like stupid, you know. So it was
And
really
our
easy.
double and our multiple action point boots block for some reason on top of that.
Oh yeah, that also combo extremely well with the Tome of Fiendel. Yeah, to block even better.
Oh,
So yeah, you had like an extremely defensive deck during the first turns of the game. And then once you were cycling off 3, 4 cards, you gotta hit something because you had like 50% or 40% blue depth. So you were always hitting something, and you were always playing with more cards than you should, and
mhm.
you were always winning because you had way more value than your opponents.
So you
And
think it's a good thing
you
that
were
she?
also running Rosetta, that is a fair and extremely well loved weapon in this game. It also helped.
And that like made it so annoying with the creepers too, because it made it so hard to get the creepers off the board.
Yeah.
So you're not necessarily saying it's a bad thing that she's different. You're saying that you think it's nice that she's kind of found her own niche potentially.
I do think it's better for the game as a whole that she's really different from Chain. It's kind of sad to have, you know, Chain's entire card pool being completely forgotten and those aside. Not completely, you can still play some cards, but I don't think they are good.
I mean, I guess we'll jump ahead to a different point if you're as long as you're mentioning that.
This
What
is
do
this
you?
is getting chaotic. I love it. I love to be in a program and jumping points all around.
Well, you mentioned like the card pool of chain not being utilized necessarily as good. what are some of the cards that you think from the old card pool of Chain that you think are still good? Like, is there anything salvageable from that old card pool, or any cards that were really good and you're like, this just isn't necessarily as good anymore?
So I already talked about, I believe, the most important one. That is Carrion Husk. Yeah, Carrion Husk is still really good. What a surprise! But yeah,
I'm glad we
you
got you
will
on here for
still
those high level thoughts. Block 6 good. That's crazy. All right, see you guys. Bye. That's the video.
deep analysis. So yeah, you still have Carrion Husk. You're still pretty OP in that regard. It's easily the most broken chest piece we have gotten in the game, I believe. So yeah, enjoy that. You should be playing that. I tried some games playing Tunic because she also has some interesting lines with Tunic, but interesting lines does not equate 6 block. So play Husk. And yeah, she will still be using Shadow Puppetry. Shadow Puppetry is still a really good card. I have some issues with her weapon and how the flail is kinda mandatory in Vynnset to activate some of her rune gate attacks, or the whole effect, or some of her rune gate attacks. So you aren't as good as the other rune blades who are playing this Mobrion, Shadow Puppetry, Lead the Charge cards to then attack with the Rosetta, because you are not playing Rosetta, you're playing a much worse weapon. Yeah, I don't think much of the other pool of chain is going to be used in her. Maybe there's some world where we can use Hole from Beyond, but I believe she's got her own hole that's better. It's called, yeah, Putrid Stirrings, and I don't think you will be playing much of the Blue Depth cards from Chain anymore. I have heard there's a deck running the one that recovered the non-attack actions, Hollow Rights.
Hmm.
There's like a fatigue deck running this one and a shadow action that makes your opponent banish the first card of his deck, but that sounds pretty janky. So I don't think we will be. Hey, maybe I'm mistaken. I haven't said that this already, but I will do now. I'm extremely bad at predicting new heroes, new metas, or at making decks from scrap. Give me an already good deck and I will make it better. But I'm extremely bad at
Things that
creating
you
new
should have
decks.
told me before bringing you onto the video, right?
So I don't take any responsibility of over anything that I said. Like I was a firm defensor that Starbo was going to be a meme hero.
Me
You
too.
know,
I thought.
I said in the last set that Usuri was going to be worse than Arachne. Like everything I have said until up to this point has been a mistake. So you're
Well, no, that could be a good thing. We just listen to you, and whatever you say, we just the opposite's true.
yeah. Switch it around. Yeah, that seems fine. But yeah, I don't think she will be using much of Chain's carpool, sadly.
And it's interesting that you mentioned the Rosetta. That's like a big sticking point that a lot of people had when we were first seeing these cards. Like, oh my god, Briar's still around. We're gonna have Rosetta in this deck. Like, can we hurry up and get that out of here so that way we don't have to deal with that in a new chain? And you're saying, maybe not even play it. That's crazy.
I mean, Rosetta is extremely powerful. It's one of the best weapons in the whole game. But you have a problem with how Vincent essentially functions. She wants to banish a rune gate attack at the start of the turn with her ability, create the rune chant, and then play it for free, right?
Hmm.
There's no pitching involved in all of this. So even if you play a non-attack action that gives you go again, like Maoprion or Shadow Puppetry, you will still need pitch another card to attack with Rosetta. And in the best scenario, you're pitching a blue and you will get a rune chant from Grasp of the Arknight and then attacking with the Rosetta for 5 damage. But then that's not that OP anymore. You're not doing as much numbers as you could, And then you have the issue that some of the attacks from Vincent, they are Deathly Wail, that it's probably one of the best attacks in the whole deck, and Deathly Delight. Both of them require you to lose health in some way. So you're forced to either play a Shadow Action and lose 1 health with the second part of Vynnset ability, or you're forced to attack with the flail. And let me tell you, the flail of agony is a horrible weapon. Like, it's really bad.
Who knew
But it
attacking
does,
by for one but losing one would be a bad rate?
and it never hits. Like, people are running armor for a reason, you know.
Yeah.
They are not afraid of just sending you one block equipment your way. So it doesn't usually trigger. If it triggers, it could be good enough. You could be playing a 2-cost rune gate during your turn, and that could be good. The problem you have is that the other replacement you have for Flail of Agony doesn't make you lose health. It's the new Scepter. Well, I don't
The
have
the pay
it,
to deal one.
but paying 2 to deal 1 isn't good either. So it doesn't even cover the problem of losing life on your turn, and it isn't as good as it should, you know. And the book is quite terrible. It's like a glorified arcane lantern, you know. This is just an arcane barrier one, and if you want to create the eloquence token, that isn't bad in itself, but it has blue depth, and you will be losing health every turn. And one thing that must be said in about the blue depth in Vincent is that she doesn't deal with it as good as Chain did, because Chain had uh, built-in go again in the hero, and he could play all of the cards from the blue depth without much problem. Some of them required to play an attack action, but you could play them easily.
Mm-hmm.
But the Runegate ones are pretty difficult to play, and they tend to stack up rather quickly in your blue depth if you don't play carefully.
Mm-hmm.
And Vincent also has a problem that we will touch upon later with defensive decks, and getting 1 or 2 points of blue depth in the form of Grimoire of the Hound and Carrion Husk quickly in your blue depth will kill you.
Circling back a bit to the scepter, I think one thing that it does potentially do better than the other weapons is the fact that it doesn't break your rune chance when you use it. Because a big thing, we're probably going to talk about this a bit more in a moment when we're talking about like what you're looking to do with your turn cycles, but you really want to be able to go into your round with rune chance enough that you can play it's void gate, right? That's the keyword ability. Um,
Runegate. Yeah.
Runegate, sorry. So if you attack with something like a Rosetta, like you do that play you're talking about, you go activate Grasp, make a rune chant, swing Rosetta, you're going to break that rune chant you just made. Where
Yeah.
with the Scepter, if you had some rune chants on the back from whatever you did, and you activate the Scepter, you're not going to break your rune chants that you just made, so you can go into the next round with that, so that way you can play your next thing for free theoretically, and also like you said with the armor, now they have to they have to pitch a card to that instead. They can't just free roll block that with armor. If they hadn't
Yeah.
already pitched, then like maybe you get them on that.
The problem with the Scepter is that they are already running AV1. They should be wearing AV1 against Runeblade at least, and it's pretty easy to stop. You could say that exchanging one card with one card from your opponent is a pretty good rate for
Mm-hmm.
a one-hand card, one-hand weapon. But the other problem is that if you're playing, you have 4 cards in your hand, you block with 2 of them, and then you banish the Runegate card for a future turn, and you reach to activate the Scepter. You're probably not using the the rune chant that the Scepter is giving you, and it essentially exchanges one of your cards for 2 damage. Would probably get better value of that card just blocking with it. The other problem is that you are already going to take damage from Blue Depth this turn, and you will probably have 2 cards with Blue Depth on your next one. And as I have said, it's pretty difficult to get rid of 2 of them in your banish zone, unless you play something like Rebel in Runeblood.
Yeah, not going to argue there that the rate's bad. Just like that is a strength that it has of not breaking your rune chance.
We are
Um,
used to one-hand weapons dealing 4 and a frostbite, right? Like this doesn't seem that good.
you're right. We should have just been able to dual wield Rosettas instead. Jumping to the next point. What do you think that this hero does differently and or better than the other rune blades that we have access to? Like,
She can
what's
block.
her identity? What differentiates her from the other options?
She's the less. I don't know how to put this in words in English, but the less comboing hero of all the rune blades. You know, she doesn't rely on a succession of non-attacks and attacks with some keywords and a Rosetta in there. No, she just does her own thing that is pretty easy to achieve, and it generates quite a good value. CA doesn't have nearly as high peaks as the other rune blades does. You know, like a really good Mordred turn with Viserai or Channel Mon Heroic with Briar. She isn't able to get those numbers, but she's much more consistent on the turns. The main problem she has is that her ability isn't optional. You are always forced to banish a card to get and get a rune chant. So it hinders her turns a lot because there are a lot of times during the game where you will draw a hand that doesn't work at all, and you can't do anything about it. You either full block with it or get a really bad turn because you're going to banish something that doesn't have rune gate or is a blue rune gate, and yeah, you can maybe play it out of necessity, but it isn't good right at all.
Not what you're looking to do with your life.
She kinda has worst lowest. I don't know how exactly that. Her lowest point is worse than the lowest point from other rune
Her
blades.
floor versus her
Yeah,
ceiling
her
kind
floor,
of
her
thing of
floor is yeah, her floor is
like
really bad, and her ceiling isn't that good either. But she's really consistent. She has really consistent turns. She has far more 3 blocks in the deck than the other rune blades does, and that's also pretty important. And I also think that we haven't like truly find the deck for her right now. She has like some
that's crazy. We're not
interesting.
even at the pre-release yet, and we haven't solved the deck. We haven't cracked the nut completely.
Yeah, I
Who
don't.
knew? Who knew?
Uh, this seems like a pretty difficult deck to crack.
Hmm.
Kind of like I don't know, Icelander until Hamilton got into it. Like maybe we need Hamilton to start playing Vynnset. She does a lot of 1 card 8 hands. He must love it.
I don't know. He doesn't get to give people frostbites. That's like
Yeah, he doesn't ruin your life, right? So she kind of feels like the guardian infiltrated in the room blades, like
mhm.
much more consistent in her turns, but can do can't do as good as them and can do much worse than them.
So it's kind of like a mid-rangey hero, but it can get punished if it gets behind and has to start blocking too much.
She has like some interesting interactions with some of her cards. She has this full suite of majestic cards that are doesn't have go again, no attack actions without go again, but it can be played as instants. One does generate an eloquence token and the other one a rune chant. They are
Hmm.
not particularly good, but you can do strange things with them. So I'm waiting for someone to solve that for me.
There's a cool one with one of them. If you use, I know you don't like the card, but the grimoire, you can use
Yeah,
that with the two of them. Where I believe it's. I mean, I guess you don't need the grimoire to do that. You play the one that makes an
the
eloquence
eloquence.
token, but then play the one that makes a rune chant, and then because you're playing it as an instant with go again, you'll get your action point back.
You, it's even better because you know that the tokens get on the stack when they trigger, as the rune chant does. You know this cool play that you can do where you attack with a lot of rune chants and then as an instant you can play a Lumin Doom,
Hmm.
and even if they are getting destroyed and dealing damage, you can still put all of them into the Lumin Doom. You can still play, for example, a Read the Runes, and in response to the Eloquence token triggering, you can play one of those instant speed action, no attack actions, and still win 1 action point because the Eloquence will trigger 2 times.
Oh, interesting. It's like still there.
Yeah, like it also has like a really strange interactions with Frostbite, where Sometimes if they do something in response to the frostbite being destroyed, you have to pay for it 2 times.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, really strange interactions there. I don't think they are all that easy for new players, but this is Runeblade card. This is the Runeblade class. You will always have these janky,
Strange niche
extremely,
interactions.
extremely strange interactions. Yeah.
Yeah, who knew that things as an instant but aren't actually normally an instant would be weird for the game mechanics? I guess that kind of segues nicely. What are other than these? What are some of the new cards that you're kind of looking at as like potentially strong cards and cards that you think are worth building around in the deck? Of like these are like what I'm looking at to kind of strategize around.
The main thing about the deck is that as it is consistent, as we have said, it is a really consistent deck. It aims to do the same thing over and over, and so you're running all of the rune gate attacks. Some of them are not all of them. The go again one doesn't seem as good as the others, but
And why is that? Is
oh,
it just the rate on it?
it's extremely below rate.
Mm-hmm.
Like the red one that only deals damage is a 7, right? Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
the Phantom Banshee is a 3/4/7 rune gate. This one is a 3/4/4 go again rune gate. Like I think it loses way too much, right? It
Mm-hmm.
isn't usually that difference in other cards. So it feels kind of bad. And 3-cost rune gates are much harder to achieve than the 2-cost ones. So you want to limit how much of them you're playing.
Mm-hmm.
Mm, I do think that probably the best attack that you can find in the deck, if you have the rune chance for it, or the correct hand to set up rune chance for it, is Deathly Well,
Mm-hmm.
because it will probably give you one rune chant, and that's enough to play a 2-cost rune gate on your next turn with with only it in your hand, and that will always be a pretty good rate. Deathly Weight, it's probably the best attack if you can achieve it, because you can enter a loop where you will be playing this and another copy of this card in your next turn, and maybe and that's pretty powerful. And but most
It
of
lets you
the
chain back to back good turns instead of like
yeah,
having an off turn of setting up.
yeah. So you aim to have like minimal setup turns.
Mm-hmm.
If you can fire off a rune gate every single turn of the game, you will probably win. So that's really, really important. And so we are prioritizing, or I believe the most important ones are the 2-cost ones and the Deathly Well, because it enables you some turns. Sadly, the 3-cost ones are pretty good, be it on rate or in effects, but they are much harder to achieve than the 2-cost ones. You have also this one. I didn't think of this card at when it was released. Like it seemed like a really bad card, but it is pretty important to play against fatigue strategies. I haven't been able to solve fatigue strategies at all,
Mm-hmm.
even with some of these in your discard and forcing a really big turn. Vynnset doesn't have, I don't think, or I haven't found the tools to deal with someone who can block and can pitch to your arcane damage. As I have said, she has like these two majestic cards that give you, one of them gives you an eloquence and the other one gives you a rune chant. If any player has lost health this turn, you can play it in the turn of your opponent as well. You can play it as an instant, and they can be played from your banish zone. They are not great, but they block 3. I'm currently playing the Funeral Moon. And you are also looking to have like this enable, these cards that enable your 2-cost and 3-cost rune gate attacks, even if you have no rune chance on the board. With the 2-cost ones, you can always banish the card, create a rune chant, and then pitch a blue to your grasp of the Arknight and play them. And that would be like 2 cards 8. That's a
Mm-hmm.
pretty good rate. Pretty great, even. And enveloping darkness is pretty important because it allows you to get to those three rune gate cards, or be more efficient while getting to
Mm-hmm.
your 2-cost ones. This also ties in really well with Oath of the Arknight. That's an attack action from Viserai that blocks for 3 and has like kinda the same text, but costs 2 and blocks 3.
Hmm.
Creates a rune chant and give +3 to your next rune blade attack.
And imagine that was like one of the cards that you're like, oh, maybe like with Tunic this could be good.
Oh yeah, this one was extremely good with Tunic, but I found that blocking 6 is much more important than getting like some really cool play with Tunic. Envelop in Darkness and one of the most important cards in even Vynnset, that is Incantation. Runeblood Incantation is probably the most important card you can get in the board in the first turns of the game. This is extremely good because you will always be able to play the 2-cost Rune Gates with this in the board and generate a ton of free value. The problem with these strategies that I am telling you now is that they often rely on your opponent attacking you, because you wouldn't get as much value from your hand if they didn't attack you. You want to get to your turn with only one card in your hand. And if you're forced to play with your whole hand and you have to play like, I don't know, Mobrian Skies into an attack with a weapon, your value goes not as good as as it would be with just blocking your opponent attacks.
So like maybe a
So yeah,
potential problem to solve with the deck is finding ways to utilize your whole hand if you
yeah,
like don't get a
maybe
chance.
she won't play the flail, but there are 2 cards that are much better with it, and I don't know. I don't know. We're still like in the early stages of building her, so I'm not entirely sure about her weapon choice, but it kind of seems like she was designed to play with the flail.
Yeah, it's crazy. I think she has probably the most, if not the most legit real choices of weapons out of any hero we've ever seen.
Oh,
I could see maybe Warrior having more, but realistically, like a lot of those aren't real choices.
she can run like Rosetta, the blade that attacks for 3. Well, let me. I
Nebula
can
Blade,
just. Yeah.
like you have so many choices, and like I don't think any of them sound that unreasonable to play, except for maybe Dread Scythe and the Sutcliffe thing.
So yeah, it's a shame that she can run Galaxy Black anymore. Press F for the clearly best weapon in the game. It LL'd earlier than Rosetta, so it must be better.
Yeah, died for his sins.
But yeah, like I don't think much of the weapons from Runeblade that good in her. Maybe she could play, I don't know, Nebula Blade. It ties really well with her whole create rune chants mechanic, but it isn't as good as a weapon. Like
Hmm.
the only one that goes extremely or that it's extremely efficient from Runeblade weapons is the Rosetta Thorn.
Hmm.
So maybe we will just end up playing Rosetta in Vynnset for as long as we can, which shouldn't be much longer, right? She should be able to win some calling or some nationals in some forgotten
Yeah,
country in
surely
Europe
she
or
wins
something.
one national.
At least one, yeah.
Probably
So
Poland. Probably Poland.
they have a history for that, right? But Bartosz could take his crown another time.
He needs to
Um,
hold on to the Talishar that he won.
so yeah, that's kinda the problem with Vincent. We didn't talk. Sorry, I forgot
No
about
go.
Rebel in Runeblood.
Hmm.
One of the best payoffs of this deck is Rebel in Runeblood because it's like the only way or one of the only ways you have of generating a lot of rune chants while you have already attacked. It allows you to play 2 rune gate attacks into the same turn. It is really really powerful, but it also requires a lot of a lot of setup and doesn't play uh does have like some wonky interactions with Deathly Whale, the card that I mentioned earlier. You can play it first, then break the chain to play, the Rebel in Runeblood, and you can still have those rune chants, but it sometimes leads to bad plays attacking with the playing the Rebel in Runeblood and attacking with the flail, and your opponent will just let it hit because you are going to lose the rune chant either way, or attacking with one of those attacks and not getting the full value. But it is extremely important to allow you to do 2 rune gate attacks turns. As we have said, like, this deck has a huge problem with fatigue, and this is one of the ways to actually do like a 20 plus damage turn.
So like,
If you
how do we set one of these kind of turns up? Like, what are we looking for like our hand and our banish? Like, what's an example of that kind of turn look like for us?
okay, like one of the things that you're aiming to do is like you get to your turn, you have 2 cards in hand, you banish one good attack with rune gate, one of the 3 cost ones, and then you play a read the runes as your action. You end up with 4 rune chants, take 1 blue deft, and on your next turn you are banishing another rune gate attack, play a go again card, be it, I don't know, a Mauvian Skies, a Shadow Puppetry. You can play the first attack with the first rune gate attack with 6 runes at that point. It should be,
And
five.
we're trying to banish another rune gate
You,
card on this
banish
turn.
another rune gate attack with
So we
Vynnset,
have
then you have
two different cards in banish that are big
different cards
dumb
in
rune
banish.
blade.
Yeah, and you play one non-attack action that gives you go again, slam one of them for free because you have the rune chant. Then you get to play the Rebel in Runeblood because you have played an attack and an attack action, and you can play the other rune gate attack for free. Like,
Mm.
if you are able to get in that position, that turn is completely insane. But it is pretty difficult to set up, and Vynnset kinda has a problem with disruption as well. She has Husk to cover for it, but there are some decks that are running disruption that you can interact with, like, I don't know,
Lexi.
like Freed or a red Arctic Incarceration. And sometimes setting up these really big turns and not being able to play them means losing a lot of life, and also getting more cards in your blue depth in the future that you are not sure you will be able to get out of there.
So like maybe it's a tool for specific decks, like the fatigue decks that you were mentioning. Like maybe this is a tool to get over that damage hump of like you can't just block with 4 cards. You're taking damage this turn. I think another way you can go about it too is wait to find a revel and then set it, and then now that you know that you already have the revel, you look for an opportunity to banish one of your rune gate cards, and then once you find another one come around, you can have a round that's like, for example, banish your second rune gate card, play the non-attack that makes a rune chant and then buffs the thing that you play. Just for
Mm-hmm.
example, you play
Yeah,
your rune gate card, you creepers to play
and
the
you with
revel, and now you got your action point back. You play the other RuneGate card. You already had to pitch to play the first non-attack, so like you have a reason to use all these resources here.
you have said another way of doing this kind of 2 attack turns is with envelope. There's another way of doing this 2 rune gates attack in 1 turn. If you find if you have an attack that gives you go again and you swing with one of your rune gates attacks, after that you can pitch to the grasp of the Arknight. You will have 1 resource floating. You can play 1 envelope in darkness, so you can still attack with another rune gate with cost 2 as less from your banish zone. And that is also a pretty good use of this card. It is so powerful that it may be included in other colors than
I
red
was about to ask
in the
that.
deck.
Is that a rainbow card?
I don't know if rainbow, because it blocks 2, and the deck really does want to block as much as possible. Yeah, it may could be.
How important do you think it is to have pitch value in your deck? Because it sounds like a lot of these rounds we're blocking and then cheating the cost curve of the game of playing stuff for free. Do you think it's important to have a high blue count? Because that was a big deal in Chain in the past of like you need a lot of blues in your deck so that way on these big rounds you have the resources to do all these shenanigans, and it doesn't matter that your deck has as many blues because they're free anyways if you're banishing them.
I believe CA has to run a lot of them. Well, not a lot, like maybe 18, 19, something like that. Like a little bit more than your usual aggro deck, because sometimes you want to banish these blue cards because they are rune-gate cards and they are your only rune-gate card in your hand and you have to play them. And you also want to have blue cards to pitch for the Grasp of the Arknight. Like if you have, widespread ruin in your hand and you banish it, you have one rune chant, you need another one to be able to play it. You need to have a blue card. You don't want to pitch 2 cards because you will be throwing your value out of the window if you did that. So having blues is, I believe, pretty important, and most of the time you're just blocking with most of your hand. So it doesn't matter if they are reds or blue cards.
The number's still the same in the corner. Who cares? So you don't think it's like a situation of Old Briar where we're trying to play basically a pitchless deck?
Ooh, the red line, right? The curious Briar. Yeah, no, I don't think you can do that right now. I also think wild prediction here, but I also think that with
Hot
Holding
takes, I
Gone,
like it.
we will be seeing a lot more of Ice Lexi in the meta. Vynnset has a huge problem with Ice Lexi. Like as you have said, most of the time you want to cheat your resources. If you get one single traitorous frostbite, you can't do that anymore. And having blues, to pay for that are pretty important.
Yeah, because the wording on was it RuneGate? I'm gonna keep forgetting. Is it goes down to 0 cost, right? Like it's so then
it's an alternative. It's an alternative way of paying it. So
if you
it
had a
doesn't get the
frostbite, it's going to add on to that after the fact. It's not going to like reduce by number of rune chants that you control or something like that.
There were some cards, some visual cards that got discounted by the number of rune chants you had. Those cards could get their cost reduced from the rune chants, and you were able to play them for free even if you have rune chants. I'm talking about become the Arknight now. How is his called? His attack is called again.
I mean, Ninth Blade, right? That's like one of them.
Ninth Blade, yeah, like Ninth Blade. If you have 10 rune chants with a Ninth Blade and one Frostbite, yeah, and one Frosty Boy, you would pay nothing for. The first would go the incremental costs, and then you would take the other ones down. So you will still pay 0 for the attack. But as RuneGate is an alternative way of paying for the card, you first set the cost to 0, and then you have to pay 1 to actually play the card. So it screws you up pretty big.
Good old one Frosty Boy. That's the Hamilton special.
As one of my friends in my team likes to say every time, like choke is broken in this game. Like frost cards, any way you can do to increase your opponent costs are broken, and he's always standing on that hill. And hey, we cannot say anything because every ice hero has been broken up till this point.
So now that we've covered kind of what cards that we think are good in the deck, like we've got our 2-cost cards, we got our things that can make rune chants. What do you envision our average turn cycles to look like, and kind of how are we looking to play the game itself? Like what's our turn to turn look like? At least as far as you see it with what you've done so far with the deck.
Like we are like sounding like so sure of what we are saying right now, and then like in 3 months the deck will be solved and everyone will look back at this video and will say, oh my god, Pablo had no idea at all, and they will be right. Like
that's why I'm giving myself the security of, well, what if it is a red line deck? Do we actually? What about the other weapons? I'm secure that.
You're playing it safe, yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, I don't know Runeblade things, so I get the free pass on that. I'm illusionist simp. I don't have to. My brain is too smooth to think about these sequencing things.
But it's pretty easy for illusionist players, right? You're always graying, and that's it, right?
Yeah.
Then you get like the 0-cost auras and destroy the meta, and
yeah.
and everything is fine in the universe.
Spectre go burr. That like actually looks like it could be a miserable.
Kind of sad. I was so sure that Prism was going to be the broken deck of this
32
set.
life. She has to be broken, right?
Yeah, of course. Like and on outsiders we had like 1 million neutral good poppers. Like we had Down and Dirty, we had Cut Down to Size, we had like an amazing number. I was extremely
afraid. Has to be insane with all these poppers,
for the new Prism, But But yeah,
She has to be
let's hope
insane.
we are
They're
not
so
mistaken here.
afraid. And then we get this shitty new weapon, and it's like, oh,
She must have a majestic weapon. That is, but she didn't. Oh, the other
she does
weapon
have a
is
majestic weapon.
the other weapon isn't gonna solve
R.I.P.
your problems.
They even pre-nerfed Luminaris by making the angels light illusionist when you play them, but light when you flip them, so they don't work with Luminaris.
On the turn cycles, we were talking about that, right?
Yeah,
I don't
little
remember.
side. We took a side adventure, little side quest.
I like that. I think you aim to banish one of your cards with Rungate every turn, so you are going to block with not your full hand every time. You will have sometimes a hand that requires full blocking, and that's alright. But you want to divide, your turns either by setting up extremely powerful turns or by attacking with this extremely efficient turns. Most of the time, you will only want 1 to 2 cards in your hand. So these off turns shouldn't come as you know. You shouldn't have as I don't know how to actually put this into words. You should have as few off turns as you can.
Mm-hmm.
Like you don't gain as much as you think with them.
We're
Like
not
it
trying to
sounds
play this as a
amazing.
setup deck where we're like trying to take an off turn to set up for the next round of like, okay, I'm going to make some rune chance and
Yeah.
then pass, and then next turn I get to play the game and play a big hand. It's like, no, we're trying to play the game every turn if possible.
Yeah, of course. We're trying to play the game every turn because while this can be a setup deck, it loses a lot of life in the process. If you are banishing one attack and not playing it this turn, and then it will clamper in your blue depth zone for 2 to 3 turns until you can play it. It probably isn't worth that much. If you have taken through life up this point to play it.
Yeah, it's like it doesn't
So
matter if it's above rate. If you
yeah,
lost all that value by taking damage to do it, it's like then it wasn't above rate anymore.
which cards do I think are good enough to play for an off turn? I don't think that's Runeblood Incantation. Runeblood Incantation is probably the most important card in the deck. If you are able to play it where you are not at 13 life, it allows you to start doing like pretty pretty extremely powerful things. The fact that it costs 1 is pretty bad because you cannot couple it with almost anything. But
Scepter.
it's oh, oh, mm. I mean, you will have to play some games on stream with Scepter. You're setting yourself up for success, I believe. Well, I have seen your streams with Prism. It can be much worse than that.
Yeah, that was a slaughter.
It has been the same for every Prism player that I have seen. And yep, you should aim to have as fewer off turns as possible. I do think that there are some cards in the deck that can be traps. I don't think playing Read the Runes is that good if you're not playing it with the Eloquence token from the Book of the Haunted. And you shouldn't be playing Book of the Haunted if it's not like the final turn. You really don't want to get blue depth in your discard and being forced to raise your opponent to end the game. As I have said, Carrion Husk is an extremely, extremely oppressive piece of equipment, and you should probably run it. But things get pretty dicey when you get like 2 to 3 points of blue depth, and your opponent start blocking, and you see how the difference in life will start getting much, much, much far.
So like our average turns, we're looking to block with a few cards, banish, play a thing, set up for the next round at the same time, and kind of rinse and repeat this cycle of block, make some rune, like play a thing that makes some rune chance, and keep setting up and just kind of loop this over and over again.
You will sometimes have some really extremely powerful aggressive hands, like a 3-cost Runegate and a red oath of the Arc Knight and a red envelope, and then you will just give it +6, create 2 rune chants, and attack for 12 +3 rune chants with an on-hit effect, and it will be amazing. But it's not the usual thing in the deck. You don't have as much pumps as the other Runeblade decks run, so it's probably better to take things slowly. It's at least it strikes me as that kind of deck.
Mm-hmm.
It also seems like she doesn't have enough room in the deck to make like substantial changes, because you are forced to run a lot of Runegate. I cannot stress this enough. When you have a hand with no Runegate, you are not a functioning hero anymore. Like, you can't do anything. You don't have a real weapon. You will banish one of your cards at the start of your turn for essentially 1 point of value. And normally when you get this full non-Runegate hand, you have a lot of non-attack actions. That doesn't block as well as the other. You will probably have a couple of 2 blocks there, and it just feels downright horrible. It feels so horrible because with I don't know, Viserai, if that happens to you and you're playing Viserai, you can just create a rune chant and attack with Rosetta for value 3 with a blue non-attack action, and arsenal another one. That's pretty good. But to arsenal a card in this deck, you have to lose another one in the way, just to create a single measly 1 rune chant. It could save your life later, but it isn't as good as it seems.
Yeah, it's like you can only block with 2 cards in that round if you want to get Rune Chant. And then you also have to probably take a Blood Debt unless you banish a card that like doesn't have Blood Debt, meaning you just lost a card for no reason.
Yeah.
That kind of goes into one of the things that was like, we've been talking about some of the problems with the deck, and that was one that we had kind of seen of what happens to the deck if you get into a blocking cycle. That seems like a massive weakness that the deck can have. If we're playing the game and we're both going down together, and then we're both kind of low, but your opponent is the one that makes you block first, and you get into that, well, I have to block or I die. You can get into this weird cycle of, if I block with 2 cards, I can throw back 1. But if I ever have to block with 3 cards, which is a reality of the game sometimes, I just never can take a game action again unless the card I banish is a Rune Gate card and I have multiple Rune Chants. But if you're in a blocking cycle, that might not be the reality unless you wait a few turns to do that, in which case you're banishing multiple cards, maybe taking Blood Debt. Is that something that you guys have seen or thought about or have any answers to, of just don't fall behind, Five Head?
You shouldn't fall behind because you will lose every time. If you fall into this blocking cycle, there's no way to get out of there, because as you know, blocking in this game is less efficient than attacking, at least for the decks that do want to attack with their whole hands, and we do have quite a lot of them in this meta. So if you're like 5 life against Alexi, it means that you have your Husk on your Blood Death Zone pinging you 1 life every turn. If you don't have any rune chants, it means that you should have at least 2 cards to play your turn, and you will never be able to have 2 cards. If you had a weapon and she's at 1 life, for example, you will still be able to punish her, but you don't have like that luxury anymore. You're forced. Well, if she's at 1, it isn't as bad because you can attack with the flail,
Mm-hmm.
and still demand 1 card block. But I mean, there's a lot of heroes who can attack for 4 or more with just 1 card in their hand, and you can't do that. You cannot get that kind of value. So you have these tools to get ahead of your opponent. These tools are called Carrion Husk. So
That's a pretty good tool.
you should get down to that life, but be ahead in lives, because
Mm-hmm.
you cannot play. And if you get like down to 4, and even if they fail a turn and cannot make you discard your her hand,
Mm-hmm.
you will probably still face a problem because you cannot deal enough damage to survive your own Carrion Husk pinging you during, I don't know, 3-4 turns.
Yeah, you're on a clock.
Yeah.
So basically, just don't fall behind. You guys haven't seen any sort of fix for that. Just win, Five Head.
we were trying Tome of Fiendal because it works really well with blocking with attack actions, and you can play it with the creepers on your opponent's turn. It also protects you a little from ice.
So
But
so what's the creeper tome interaction? I know this, but for the viewers,
okay,
because it's so cute. It's one of my favorite ways to play it.
it's probably my favorite play in the whole Flesh and Blood. Um, well, no, Common Pummel with Tunic, and then we have this one. But yeah, when you when you block with one of your attack actions during your opponent's turn, and all of the attack actions from Vynnset and from Chain back in the day block for 3, so they are not really that bad to block. When you block with one of them, creepers are active, even if it's your opponent's turn. And creepers say that paying 1, you can play your next non-attack action as if it was an instant. So in your opponent's turn, you are able to pitch and play the Tome of Fiendal from your arsenal, drawing 2, and gaining 4 life in the process. You have block 3, and you have 4 life, and you still have 1 pitch floating. You can use it that for, I don't know, Arcane Barrier, or maybe getting a Frostbite out. And you're getting back to your turn with 4 cards. And the magic thing is that creepers only check if they get destroyed at the end of your turn.
Not
So
your opponents.
not your opponents. So you can still use them another time during your turn, and then they will get destroyed. Or you can just, if you see that you're not going to use them, you can just block with them as well. The same turn that you do the Tome of Fiendal play.
And you can probably see based on how you draw if that's like what's going on. Like, okay, let's see what I draw off the tome. If they're still attacking after this, like if they have go again or something, does this hand actually utilize my creepers again? No, and I don't think I can keep it around. I'll just block with it and cash it in for another point of value.
Tome of Fiendal also seemed like a really good choice for the deck because we had like this Majestic that gives you Eloquence tokens. Like Eloquence token seems like a perfect fit for Tome of Fiendal. Like it is the most powerful non-attack action you can play with Go Again, I believe.
Yeah,
At
that card's
least that
broken.
is, but it isn't that good because the just playing one card for another card in your deck usually leads to some really bad situations. And the other problem we had is arsenaling is pretty difficult with this deck sometimes. It is a yellow card, and we aim to have blue cards and blocks 3, and it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't block 3. You know, it has a lot of problems. The other way that you could be playing it is with Book of the Hunt, but as I have said, like that needs to be in the final turns of the game because following that turn you will take 1 damage each turn, and it doesn't sound like that efficient to me. You know, it is still a pretty good play if you are able to do it like at 5 life or something.
Yeah,
But as I
it's
have said,
like in a vacuum a really strong play, but there's like a lot of drawback to it. And also like one of the weaknesses that we already pointed out was you can struggle sometimes to use all the cards in your hand, and getting 2 mystery cards off the top of your deck can make it very hard to plan out your round. Where it's like, well, I didn't know what these top 2 cards were because I did it on my own turn, and if I knew what this was going to be my hand texture before, I probably would have blocked with more of these cards, but I don't get that choice if it's on my own turn. So now
yeah,
I'm just stuck with these cards, so I didn't even utilize the card draw. I'm just going to end with extra cards in my hand.
they were pretty clunky as well. So yeah, I ended up removing them. Maybe they make the cut in other people's decks. It is a really powerful card that
Mm-hmm.
opens up like especially powerful play patterns. But as Pheano has said, it has a lot of randomness to it, and this deck usually doesn't function much better with a lot of cards in the hand.
I give you a selling point to play them. It lets you cosplay as Chain because you have to change your plans based off of your shackles. So it's like you're getting to do that again. All right, now how do we use these cards on my own round? Now that we know what these cards are.
As we have said goodbye to the Skeleton during the last ban unrestricted list, I believe we have to say goodbye to Chain. I don't think after seeing Vynnset design and how her card pool is used, I don't think we will be ever seeing Chain back.
Living
He
legend
was.
format. Living legend.
Oh, of course, of course. In the degenerate format, we will do degenerate things. I trust in it, and it's extremely funny to me because like it's a format with Prism extremely broken, Chain extremely broken, uh, Starbucks extremely broken, and Oldhim. And Oldhim was broken much later in the format. You know, like he will be like the younger brother in the Living Legend format. I don't think he will perform really well. Like everyone is better than him in the format. I mean,
I could see
it's
a
a format
world
where
where maybe the rune blades are so powerful that Starvo can't play into them, where the only way to beat them is by fatiguing them, so you might as well play the better guardian at fatiguing, maybe? I don't know. That's like the
we
only
will
thing I could see.
we will still have like the millions of Prism Simps that exist in this game, and they will destroy the old man as they have done like until she was gone.
Hmm.
I remember when we were in the Pro Tour 2 in Lille. I remember looking at the tables that we had. Like we were playing like round 13 or something like that, or
It
12.
was the second to
Re-
last round.
like extremely into the tournament. And I remember looking to my left and seeing Oldhim against Prism, and I said, "Oh my god, no Oldims on top."
I didn't see a single Oldhim that entire tournament. And then I've been realizing this recently. I don't think I ever played against Oldhim a single time in the time that I played Prism.
Wow, you
Because,
haven't enjoyed the free matchup.
no, I never got lucky to have it. So it's like during the Briar meta, I barely played any CC because there was like nothing going on and that was CC during like after Nationals. It was like all skirmish and stuff like that. And then we had the Starvo meta. Obviously, I didn't see any Oldhim then. And then after the Starvo meta, Oldhim was a deck, but I just never saw one. I dodged all the Oldhims. So I think
Well, you did pretty good, even while not playing against Oldhim. It
that's
was a
just
pretty
like
good tournament for
crazy
you.
to think about. Like the statistical odds of that happening is insane. I think I faced like 5 or 6 rune blades at that tournament. Okay.
Hey, you won against them, right?
Yeah.
Everything's fine then.
Yeah. This is a fine timeline. So done with our kind of overview of the hero and our thoughts on it. Just want to do a couple quick Q&As with the viewers. You guys left me some questions on Twitter. If I didn't get to your question, I'm sorry. I tried to find all the ones that I could find and throw them on here. First and foremost, I'm gonna start with the funny one first. How
Oh,
fast do you think you're gonna LL this one? And
oh,
one of my IRL friends said also add to this went the last 2 heroes he tried picking up was Chain and Oldhim, and then that next month you LL'd them. Do you think this hero is safe for him to pick up? Can he buy cards for this, or is he going to lose money again?
I feel sorry for him, and he's probably not really good at reading metas. I will I will say that as well. Or he's really good at reading metas, but not at spending his money. He didn't know which heroes were good, but
Yeah, I think he
uh,
likes lighting his money on fire.
I think Vynnset is safe. I don't think she will be gaining a lot of Living Legend points really fast. It kind of feels like her design still lacks something.
Hmm.
I was really surprised because she didn't have like all of the other uh, specializations have like legendary in this set, like that headpiece for illusionist or the chest for warrior. You know, there was like a illusionist card, a illusionist legendary, and a light illusionist legendary, like two for each class. You know,
Hmm.
and then Vincent didn't have any. She got this. It's pretty good. The Runeblade chest that blocks for 2 and 1 and gets AB2, but she has Husk. You know, like if you want a chest piece that blocks a lot, you already have it covered. It was like she didn't come with any legendaries, and honestly, her offhand seems a little bit weak. It is really good against matchups where a King Barrier is relevant, but if not, it seems like a pretty poor option.
Hmm.
So it still seems that we need to see more cards from Vynnset, but it's a much better deck than I initially thought.
All right.
It is pretty close to being competitive. I mean, if the problem with fatigue could be solved, I do think it's a competitive deck.
I guess that's like another thing. Like you think that this is a deck that you can play, and it's not embarrassing to play, even if like
Yeah.
this is all we get. Like as far as we've solved it right now, this is it. Like we didn't miss anything. You think it's still fine to play. It's not like an Azalea tier embarrassing deck.
No, no, it isn't. It isn't. It's a pretty cool deck. And it's also pretty funny to play because it operates on other axes of the game. You know, it does like its own thing, and
Mm-hmm.
those decks are always funny if they are not Kano.
So Prism's fun.
Oh, I mean,
This is
at
canon.
least
Prism's fun.
I will say this: Prism was not fun if you were playing Guardian. If you were playing any other class, it was like a fun back and forth. You know, like with Guardian you couldn't do anything, and it was just frustrating. But yeah, Kano is an amazing deck to play yourself, but not to play against. You know, like
Solitaire.
it's a monologue. Like it's solitaire. Yeah, as you have said, like it does its own thing on its side of the table. And if you kill him, it's alright, and if you don't, it leads to pretty boring situations.
I just leave any game on Talishar if my opponent flips up a Kano. I'm like, I don't feel like watching you play. I'm good.
And I have played Kano like a lot, so I know
So I've
where
probably left a few
where this
games
is
with you.
coming from.
Tales of Alex, friend of the channel, asks, "What's your favorite food and why?"
A great friend of mine as well. He was actually the first person to ever interview me in this game or do anything like in the top 8 of the first Pro Tour. So I will always hold that dear in my heart. My favorite food. I'm a cheese lover. I have a huge problem with cheese. As I eat
Me
a
too. I
lot
get
of it.
that. It doesn't love me, but I love it.
Like, oh, but that's a good thing in Europe, but not in the United States. I have tried your cheese. It's horrible.
You're gonna have to show me around next time I come over.
Of course, I would be down to.
Dinner date next time I'm in Europe.
Oh, oh. um, but yeah, I do love cheese. And I could like eat it with anything or just alone, with some bread or something. And if we're talking about a side, a dish, it would be like something with rice. I also like rice. Like I don't know if this exists in English, but we call it arroz a la cubana. In Spanish, it's like rice with tomato sauce, meat, and a fried egg on top.
I don't think I've ever seen that before.
Okay, that's chef kiss.
Let's see. Rosie has two questions. One,
Wow.
not allowed. Deleting the second half. Vynnset related one, then a non-Vynnset related one. First, do you think Vynnset will work better as a transformational sideboard from go wide to go tall? Or will it inevitably fall into a specific camp of one of these?
Mm. I do think she will be able to work with her sideboard quite a lot, but you have a core of, as I have said earlier, like your core deck is like 45 plus cards. Like you have a lot of mandatory cards in your deck, so I don't think you can switch your playstyle to go wide. I do think you could include like key cards against fatigue or defense reactions against some matchups or something like that, but I don't think it will be like Dash where you can change your entire game plan with your sideboard or Prism. No, I don't think so.
How does it feel to LL half the heroes?
Uh, it is pretty funny. I'm not going to lie because it kind of seems like I'm this opportunistic player that is waiting in the shadows and biding his time, to come and deal like the finishing strike. But
So you
yeah,
should play Briar.
oh, I
It's
will say this.
guaranteed if you play it.
Like Briar has much more point. Like I don't know what I will be playing in Colin Birmingham, but Briar has fewer more points than the other decks because I have the opportunity to live in Legend here as well. You know, like I can take that. But I don't like playing Briar as much, so it evens out.
But you could
But
meep
yeah,
people. Meep.
that's a pretty cool card. I do think it's pretty powerful in Channelmon heroic builds. The
Meep.
thing is, Channelmon heroic builds died with Belittle Elite, right?
Oh, it's an interesting thought. I never really thought that, but I could see that.
I mean, Matthew Falk's winning deck list from Brother 2 had like the best card on the deck was Channelmon heroic coupled with the Belittles.
Mm-hmm.
It was an amazing deck.
Oh my god!
Um,
Imagine if we had Meep with Belittles still.
oh,
Holy
it would
shit!
be I thought that they were going to unban Belittle when we were reaching this banner restricted list, and I thought that they preferred LSS preferred like a high power format than than nerfing the Rangers. But yeah, they did a really light nerf of Rangers instead. That's fine. That's probably a fine approach of how to change a little bit the meta.
It's
But
weird. It feels like they want to lower the power level of the game, but then at the same time they give us stuff like Lexi and where it's like we want. It feels like they want the game to be lower power, more grindy because of Zuri and Riptide and the two new heroes that we just got. But then at the same time, Lexi is like this insane above rate hero.
who have you talked about? Riptide? Is that a hero? Doesn't even get mentioned in the banner restricted list. Write ups as a ranger hero, so it doesn't exist, right?
He's basically a guardian, right?
I was so excited when they like released the art for Riptide because he's so much like Sion, my favorite character from League of Legends. And I was like, oh my god, this is going to be amazing. And it wasn't.
I was so sad that they didn't give him an offhand hook because he has like a hook in the art. I
I
was
was
really hoping he was going to get something that was like this. This is the card that was in my head. It's a offhand that you can pay a shitty rate to attack for one or something. Like give Ranger the ability to have a weapon that can attack even if it's at a terrible rate. Whatever. Like a 2 for 1. Whatever. But then what you actually use it for is he uses it to hook cards to block with. So you could like pay 3 to. This might be too good, but I don't think it is. You grab an action card from your opponent's combat chain that isn't the active chain link and make it a defending card on the current chain link. So like you're playing against Phi, and they go like 0 for 3, go again. You go okay, whatever, I'll deal with that. Then they go play another 0 for 3, go again. You activate the hook. You grab the first 0 for 3 and make it blocking the second one. That's not a
That's
great rate because that's a block 2. You're not, but it's like the kind of
yeah.
like I can spend resources to block by keeping, but it keeps cards in my deck, and it could also theoretically have the ability to like disrupt your opponent's chain links of like maybe they needed a certain number of chain links to hit rupture or mask or something like that, and it, like maybe it interacts in such a way that it fucks that up. So like you're not like
I
doing anything crazy.
I was sure he was going to get a weapon that you could only activate if you had a face-up trap in your arsenal. Like the main problem I see with Riptide is surprise fatigue.
Mm-hmm.
Like it kind of seems like from a design standpoint, it's pretty difficult to deal with fatigue and have these new concepts into the game. And Riptide has a huge problem with fatigue, and I thought that he was getting a weapon that let you reveal a trap, and if you had a face-up trap, it would attack. I don't know, for 5 or something like that. That something above rate, to fight against fatigue. But I trust the LSS. They have done like a really good job of revitalizing old heroes.
Mm-hmm.
So I expect some nice things for him in the future.
Mm-hmm.
Like it could be difficult to to have new Ranger cards that are good in Lexi and Azalea. So they're probably focusing on him on the next set.
Liher asks, without Oldhim, what decks take up some of the control-y characters? Seems to me resilient mid-range like Azuri and Dromai will be reasonable. Not sure about Icelander. So, like, what do you think kind of fill the void now that Oldhim's gone as the defensive decks of the format and can kind of be control decks?
Oh, it should be either Usuri or Bravo. I think Icelander hasn't always been like a control deck. Like if we equate control to blocking a lot and throwing disruption, she doesn't block a lot. She just generates a lot of value. So yeah, it should be something in the lines of Usuri or Bravo. Bravo has a really powerful new card. He's probably much better than he was. And Usuri has lost probably her worst matchup. That was holding. Well, and Dromai, right? But you can now play much more cards against Dromai in your sideboard. Cards that were for the Oldhim matchup in the past. So I do think it will probably be Usuri right now because of the matchup with Rangers. But I do have to try Bravo with the new Starstruck, right? I love the art of that card. To see how it falls into the meta.
Actually, I have a question. What do you think? Because like this seems like a polarizing opinion of a lot of the top players in the game, thinking that Bravo's just a terrible hero in a vacuum, or they think he's still great. And it's one of those things like people are going to play the deck no matter what because it's a deck that has a lot of followers of the deck. What do you think about Bravo just as a deck? Do you think it's a good hero?
Oh, I do think that Bravo's ability is horrible, like really, really bad. Like the rate on it is. I mean, there's a lot of heroes that gain something for free from their ability power, or it enables some some novel way of playing the game, like Dromai. If Dromai didn't have his text, you couldn't play Dromai at all. Or you can get free rune chance every turn with Viserai. And then Bravo's ability, you are going to probably use it like once, twice a game, and it is because you have a extremely broken card that is called crippling crash. If not, you wouldn't be playing it at all unless you are already on the offensive on the game, and it is pretty difficult to get on the offensive side of the game when you have a really high chance of hitting a 4 blue card hand and losing all the tempo. I do think Bravo has like some structural problems that Oldhim solved really nice. It's called Crown of Seeds, That's like
Turns out pretty good.
turns out that the card is pretty broken because it has like an amazing amount of consistency in the deck. I do also think that Tunic is much powerful probably than his own chess piece, the tectonic plating. And Oldhim used to use Tunic really efficiently. So yeah, there are several things. He has a lot of block in equipment, and that's really good to try to get ahead in the game. And Bravo can be like an extremely bullshit hero when he hits like crippling into Starstruck, into Spinal, into crippling, and into Command Pummel, and you just die and you didn't play the game at all. But yeah, I don't think that's like the usual. Extremely good against ninjas though. Yeah, the main problem with Bravo is that he's really good if your opponent doesn't block as well as most of the top decks do right now. If you are full of 2 blocks, and undominated crippling is a problem. If you're playing, I don't know, Lexi or Dromai, and you can just block with 3 cards and do something with the last
the
one.
deck doesn't have a fridge of armor that they can just throw at it.
Okay.
That's also a big problem that he has. It's like, I'm going to take this damage to throw back this thing because it should take your round. Oh, I didn't even get a card. I just got armor. Fuck.
Oh, and it's extremely upsetting when he does his loop of, I will pitch to give dominate to this attack to make sure that I will get the on hit on this card, and then they just play a defense reaction from Arsenal, and you have lost all of your efficiency because you have wasted an extra card giving it dominate, and the attack itself is below rate because it has a pretty good effect, and he has like these kind of problems that always block him from being like one of the top contenders of the meta. I
Sounds
don't
like
know
you're not that high on
what
him.
we are talking about Bravo right now. Like this was a Vynnset episode, right? And we're talking about Bravo. He's the most handsome man in Rathe too. Like
Yeah, why haven't you
I
cosplayed him yet?
I do have to lose quite a bit of weight to do that, and not be an offense to the eyes of the people watching the cosplay. But I would love to.
Post Everfest party, bravo.
Uh, no, I love the. I believe it was a fan art of the Living Legend heroes, and Starbo was there with a huge with a.
I didn't
He
see
had
this.
gotten so fat. He had gotten so fat, and he was like drinking margaritas on the beach.
I gotta find this later.
I could cosplay that.
Fortness asks, pummels in Vynnset?
uh, I like Pamos. It's one of the most powerful cards in the game. The thing is, it is most powerful when your opponent doesn't expect it. If you're banishing a Rune Gate card and then swinging with it with no go again, and you have two cards in your hand, it might be a tad obvious that you're going to play a Pummel there.
Blue pitch play either of the one costs, and then you play the
Sure.
Rune Gate.
That would be an amazing situation. Yeah, of course. That would be
like,
really good.
I could Arsenal this, I could play it, you don't know what I'm doing with it.
I do think that it could be played. I have one of them in my deck right now, as the mind tricks,
Mm-hmm.
but it isn't that good, and it blocks two. Blocking two is a pretty important thing in the deck.
And then last question, where did you start with deck building, and did you utilize chain shells at all, or did you just go right straight to abusing RuneGate stuff?
I love, because as I have said, I'm a terrible deck builder, so my approach was just jamming every new card into the deck and running it.
That's what I
horrible.
do.
It was horrible, but I could see like, okay, this is a good Rune Gate card. This is not a good Rune Gate card. Okay, this makes sense. This other Majestic doesn't make any sense. And up there I started doing my thing. Like, well, we need to generate more rune chants. We don't need this many non-attack actions. We need more Rune Gates into the deck, and I started working from there. It's usually what I do when I don't have somebody else decks to copy. I will say I have seamlessly copied every deck I have won a tournament with. It's not made from scratch from me. None of it. I'm always looking at winning deck lists. So yeah, you can.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Net decking is fine. Just take the deck and make it yours. There's a lot of work and processing in trying to adapt for a new meta or even to your playstyle. You can take this 5 deck, but I would love to be able to block more. Then I will going to switch some cards or.
And I think that's like a thing that people don't talk about enough in this game, that net decking feels very different in this game compared to other games, because it's very hard looking at a deck list and understanding why a lot of niche cards can be in a deck, or like how they sideboard necessarily, and like so much of this game is game plans also. Like, you can't look at a deck list and go, I know how they're playing this matchup, and that's so much of what Fab is. So like, you still have like a lot of work to do when you like just look at a deck list.
That actually happened to me when I won the Pro Tour with Chain. I had so many messages of people asking for the sideboard plan that I got fed up with it and didn't respond to anyone. Like, it was an amazing amount. And I do think that one of the key aspects of really mastering a deck in this game is you yourself knowing what you should be playing in every matchup. If you have the list, go ahead, take it, play it, tinker with it a lot. Like, it could also be wrong. Like, it could have won a tournament and still have like one or two bad choices for cards, and you can switch your entire game plan in some situations. So yeah, net decking feels like only half the work in this game. It's not that as easy as in other games. Even if you have the full sideboard plan, much of the time I'm playing with someone else's deck and I have their sideboard plan, it's like I don't necessarily agree with these ideas. I will try them,
Mm-hmm.
but most of the time I'm switching things around, trying. There's always room for improvement, at least until we're heading down the last days of some metagame.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, that's all our questions. Thank you so much for coming on, talking about this with us.
That was long.
Yeah, that was an hour and a half. Probably gonna cut it down a bit, but like, is there anything that you want to shout out before heading out? Any socials or anything like that? Where
I
can
want
people
to
find
thank
you?
you for inviting me here, even if we have had our differences in the past and you have stepped over me in
Won't won't be the
in
last.
really important places. But yeah, thank you for the opportunity. It's always a pleasure coming here and helping a friend and trying to help other people to building Vincent. I would have been really happy to come across content as this. My first days playing Flesh and Blood, there wasn't as much content creators, and especially there wasn't as much content creators in Spanish that were known. so so yeah, it's an amazing, and as a shout out as always to my team, they have been suffering me the last 2 days of jamming games against Vynnset. I have played against everything, Bolting, Lexi, Levaya is doing like pretty well right now. We will talk about touch upon that, but the transformation thing is pretty powerful, and
I
yeah,
saw that
as a shout
when I
out.
saw that card. I was like, I don't need to see the rest of the spoilers for her. She's playable now. I was like, I don't. She literally she gets nothing else. She's playable.
The consumed form is really powerful. It's really cool because it opens up a mini game where you try to get her down from 13 so she doesn't transform in her next turn. So it's pretty. I believe it's a pretty good design. It also reminds me of Hearthstone, So it's nice, a nice callback of having her hero replaced.
Hmm.
Um, and yep, that's it. I had a really good time. It's a bad day here in Spain. You will have noticed with in my clothes, but it's like really hot, and these aren't my headphones, so they are like really hot as well. I'm sweating a lot. So
Oh my god, that was
had a
me and
great
Lil.
had a great and exhausting podcast.
That was me and Lil. I was overheating during the
Oh,
stream games.
it was horrible. It was horrible.
Fucking
I was in
mask,
shorts,
glasses, headphones. I
and
was
and we
dying.
had like the noise canceling headphones, right? Do you
Yeah.
remember them at the tournament? Like it. I remember talking with one of my Polish friends, with Jakub, and he told me that should be considered an element of torture. Like he couldn't concentrate at all. It was like really distracting. I don't know if I think they haven't used it that again.
Well,
Hardcore flesh and blood,
yeah,
playing
right.
under the direst of circumstances.
It's like a shadow game.
Yeah,
Well, anyways, thank you so much for coming on. Hopefully, we see you again sometime. Good luck with your nationals.
it was a pleasure. Good luck to you too.